Hello, travel biz owner. Welcome to my corner of the travel industry, the Strategic Travel Entrepreneur Podcast. If you're ready to have fun, be inspired, get clarity, and take action in your travel business, then you're in the right place. Let's jump in. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the podcast. If you're new around here, my name is Rita M. Perez. I am your hostess with the mostest. It has been quite some time. Well, last week you heard the travel tech, little snippets of the travel tech audio summit. But other than like the snippets episode, it's been quite some time since we've had a guest on. And this is not only a guest, it's a friend. We frequently talk about business things and just personal and life things. You may have heard her on the podcast before. So what kind of inspired this episode about talking about financial tech is we were chatting about the tech summit and we're thinking about financial technology and thought, that would be a really great topic just to chat on. So here we are. So welcome back, Stephanie Cannon, to the podcast.
Yay, I'm so happy to be back. I think it's been a while, but
Yes. It
here we
has
are
been.
again.
I know. Speaking of, because I pulled up the episode. So if you have not heard, if this is your first time with Stephanie Cannon, she has been on a couple of episodes. So get your little notebook out because there's 5 episodes that you can listen in back on Stephanie and I chatting all different things. So it's episode 22, 56, 104 and 105 because we did a part one, part two, and then 123, which is a replay of one of her sessions at Prep for Wave Week. So hopefully you got all of those. If not, just do a little quick rewind and take a listen in on some of those past episodes because it really does go like from basics and finances to like tax and profit planning and a little bit more advanced things. Stephanie, for those that might not know you, they're obviously going to learn a little bit about you from those previous episodes. So just briefly, can you mention, because I know that you have your CPA, and then also like talk about a fun fact people might not have known about you before?
Oh, now you're asking the hard questions. Well, there's a few people who do know this because being on previous FAMs or mastermind retreats, but I love music and I love the dance. So,
Oh,
and I took dance lessons since the age of 5 all the way through college.
no way. What kinds of dance?
Well, it's ballet and tap, when you're the little kid and like they
I did
parade
that.
you on stage and the instructor is behind the curtain doing all the moves with you.
Yeah.
And then all the way up to then we did jazz, modern, and even hip hop with a really famous person, but he wasn't famous when I was in his hip hop classes.
Ooh, interesting. Well, that's cool. I used to do that stuff when I was a kid also, but I think I stopped maybe like middle schoolish. It didn't go past then.
So yeah,
And
still love it.
then and then like your official credentials is
Yes, my
CPA.
official. So, well, let's start with the travel part because I'm coming up on 19 years in the industry.
Wow,
So, middle of June will be 19 years. Yeah. It's
that's
been it's
crazy.
been a hot minute and it looks very different today
Yeah,
than when I started 19 years ago.
yeah,
Lots of things have changed. Technology advances were like that's probably one of the biggest thing that I've seen. But before that, my background is in accounting and finance, and I worked in public accounting for, I don't remember how many years per se, but I've had my CPA license since the mid 90s, dating myself here, early to mid 90s. So it's been a while. And continue that on into my corporate career. And of course, running my own business, like I always knew what
hmm
to do behind the scenes, but now bringing it to travel advisors. So helping them understand it better. And of course, we're going to talk about technology here in a little bit, but that plays a big piece, of
yeah.
this whole puzzle.
Yep, I remember because You said 19, and now I'm looking at the calendar and I'm like, oh yeah, it's gonna be 15 years for me this year. And way back when, I don't think we were really talking about tracking finances like the way we talk about tracking There was a lot of things that weren't really talked about in at least my early days. In terms of like just tracking information within your business and the professionalism, because those tools also weren't available. But I feel like because business has been around for centuries at this point, there have been financial tracking systems. That has been much better than on like the CRM side of the travel business.
Very true. Yes, because so I won't say what year I started, working in public accounting. It's been a while, but a lot of those businesses were manual.
Yeah.
The big ledger tablets, I mean, the
Oh,
whole bookkeeping system was on these ledger sheets and in these file
yeah.
folders that you would put, in the file cabinet. And now it's all digital, or it can be all digital. We don't have to do any of that anymore,
Yeah.
and which makes it a lot more efficient.
Yeah.
But now we enter technology, and some people shy away from that. So,
Yeah, you said bring out the ledger, and that made me think of my high school accounting days. And I was good at accounting, but I hated accounting because of the same thing, the same reason, having to track all of it.
yeah, it's a little time consuming. Let's just say that.
Yeah. So I know you recently ran like a financial literacy month where you were mentioning kind of the different levels when it comes to tracking your finances. I think that's a really great start for people to see, identify like where they're at and where they need to be going to. I think that's also like just really good level playing field before we get started and talking about some of the technology is to see where you're at.
Yeah. So, and I actually came up with this during the actual month. It was Literacy Month was in April, and I actually renamed it to Financial Power Month
Love it.
because, I mean, who wants to be financially literate? It doesn't sound fun or sexy. So let's create something with a little more power behind it.
Yeah.
So it's like, how can I explain this in a way that travel advisors can actually see where they are, but where they're going or what their real goal is?
Hmm.
So, kind of reverse engineering has how my brain works.
Yeah.
It's thinking, where do they want to be? So, that's my level 4. And where are they along this journey? And of course, it's not, level 1 stops and level 2 starts. Sometimes it's intermingled. They can be in two levels at the same time.
Hmm.
But we'll start with ground level, like tier 0. And this is what I call pre-tracking. Like, you're avoiding your numbers like the plague, right? And you don't want to look at anything, you don't want to face anything. And we just like, okay, it's fine. I don't need to look at it at all.
Yeah.
Then we have tier 1. And I really think this is where a lot of travel advisors are. They're probably between tier 1 and tier 2. So tier 1, tracking for taxes. That's all they're doing. They're like, okay, I'm going to track this because the IRS says I have to, or my accountant tells me I need to be able to file taxes. And I call that one survival mode.
Hmm.
We're just like keeping up with the bare minimum, not because I want to, but because I don't have a choice.
Right.
And then tier 2 is tracking for clarity. So this is more stability mode, right? We're still having to track for taxes. That's not going to go away. And
Hmm.
it doesn't really matter what country you're located in. If we have anybody who isn't US based, I'm sure you have some tax authority that requires you to submit your business numbers, on a particular basis.
Right.
But the real benefit of tracking your numbers is for you, the business owner. I don't know any businesses, like, think of the larger corporations. And I know that's not us, but if they didn't do anything but hire somebody to track their numbers one time a year to file taxes, how would they operate and be profitable and pay people and take care of their shareholders and all of this thing, right?
Yeah.
There's more to it. So the clarity piece is stopping the guessing game, like, I think I'm making money, but I'm not sure, to where
Hmm.
now the numbers are in black and white. You may not quite understand them all, but at least they're there and you get comfortable with that piece. And
Yeah.
this is why I say I think most travel advisors are between the tier one and tier two. Then we move to tier three, planning for profit, right? Strategy mode. So now we know the past because we're already tracking it. That's our history. But we're taking that information plus the additional stuff we know that's happening or will be happening in our business, and we can plan for the future.
Hmm.
And that gives us goals. And now we can tell by what we're seeing if we're staying on track with those goals.
Hmm.
And then tier four, paying yourself on purpose, freedom mode. So we're not hoping there's money left over to pay us. We're knowing that there will be because we
Yeah.
set it up to be that way. And I think that's where most travel advisors, that's where they really want to be. They
Hmm.
just can't see the connection between where they are and what it takes to get there.
Yeah, this makes me think of two things. The first thing that I immediately thought of was when I was working in the theme parks. My last role was a senior labor analyst, and that directly had to do with what the budget was for labor and workforce. Like, I couldn't schedule people if we didn't have the budget for scheduling people. And also thinking about it as an operator, because when I was working in the theme parks on the food and beverage side, we would have like this computer system that would tell us how many sales that we were at and like what our labor costs were for those sales. So we could see if it was like a hot summer day, but then we had a rainstorm, we would have to cut that labor because people weren't coming in, people were leaving the park. So we would have to cut the labor to atone for like the extra expenses that we weren't expecting to have because we thought we were going to make all these sales. So it's interesting how like a previous life is coming into the fold here and being able to see that it's not just small business owners. Like, this is how bigger, larger corporations are running and keeping track of their numbers. So if that's not saying that we want to be big, large corporations, but we have to think like that to be a strategic travel entrepreneur and operating in what you were saying, that strategy zone, that profit planning zone, so that you're thinking ahead. Like, you're not being behind in the game really stinks, especially when it comes to
Yes.
finances.
Well, and this happens to everybody, and
Hmm.
especially the way, kind of like the titles
Hmm.
that are given to travel advisors. Like they call themselves ICs. I'm an independent contractor, so all I have to do is sell.
Hmm.
But you also have expenses for your business. And so it's that managing, not just the marketing and selling piece, but you got to manage the middle.
Yeah.
And the middle is being a good steward of the money that's coming into your business so
Oh
that
yeah.
there is money left over to pay you. It's not scraps. It's not like, ooh, there's not enough. What do I do now?
Hmm.
Like, because you have a plan
Right.
that this is what it's going to be. And if things go off track for any reason, almost immediately, maybe not, maybe at the end of the month, depending on how, often you look, but you have the ability to adjust almost real time versus getting to the end of the year. Now we're in April, file taxes, and now you're like, wait a minute, that's not the goals that I had hoped for.
Hmm. Right.
Well, you can't change anything because it's too far gone. So
Right. Yeah, because
tracking your numbers helps to do
yeah.
that. Whether you realize it or not, it's not supposed to be a chore. It's supposed to be something that gives you data in the form of numbers, not words, not like how many clients you have or your clients by name.
Hmm.
But I mean, sales are a number, commission is a number, paychecks are a number. Like it's all money.
Right. Because that makes me think of the second thought that I had, which was a couple weeks ago. I think when we were celebrating episode 200, I had said that we need to start looking at travel advisors like financial advisors, and travel advisors need to see themselves almost like the role as a financial advisor, but obviously more fun because you're in travel, not in finance. But I think if you think of yourself differently, almost in a higher regard, you start taking your business seriously as well. And I had heard feedback from that, that a couple people were like, oh, I am going to take that into account and start thinking of myself as a financial advisor because you just act differently. I think this is also going to be filtering a lot of people. Like if you are a travel hobbyist versus a travel business owner, those are two separate different things.
Yeah, they are very different because the approach and the mindset behind each one of those is different.
Hmm.
And I've been talking a lot, like you can still be a travel business owner and not have to work full time. And I think that's
Correct.
probably where this comes in. People
Right.
are like, well, I don't want to work full time, so I'll just do it as a hobby. Well,
Hmm.
you can still work part time
Right.
and be profitable and pay yourself. And it doesn't have to be a hobby.
Right. Right. Yes. I think like, and that needs to be super important too, because we know that there's so many people that are doing this as second careers, or their first career is being a parent and taking care of all the things that are at home, but they do still, the household does need to make more income. So the point is looking at this as like a living, breathing entity. And what are you going to be doing to keeping this up? This isn't just fun money. I mean, maybe it is fun money, but this is not, you can't look at it like fun monopoly money that you're making here because again, then you're going into the travel hobby realm.
Yes. And newsflash, even if you're running it as a hobby, the IRS still has the same requirements. So,
I love that you segued right into the next segment here about talking about some of these IRS requirements. Now, I know you're not anybody's financial advisor that's listening on here, so this is just educational information. But regardless of where you're at in business, what are some of these
well,
financial
I mean,
requirements from them?
yeah. So the main one, and the IRS doesn't care how, like what technology or not, no technology that you use.
Uh-huh.
But the main requirement for all business owners, it doesn't matter if you're small, big, everything in between, they require you to keep accurate books and records.
Yeah.
Like there is no escaping this. So you're tracking the money coming in, the money going out, receipts, invoices, mileage logs. Like there's a whole thing that they have written and you can, people can go search it, find it
Mhm.
on their website. I'm not making this up. This isn't my rule.
Right.
It's their rule.
Yeah.
So, and I would assume that other countries have something similar, right?
Mhm.
Because they can come and request to see those at any point in time. Basically,
Mhm.
that's an audit. And I've spoken to so many travel advisors over the last few years that have been audited and how much of a nightmare it was
Mhm.
because this wasn't available and they had to go back and recreate it all.
Mhm. So when we're thinking about that, then what are the things that need to be recorded? And I want to I say that to kind of like lay the base for like when people are looking for financial technology, what should they be looking out for when they pick a route to go to?
Yeah, so the basics need to be covered. Like I said, the IRS doesn't care if you do it digitally, manually. Like we can go back to the ledger sheets if you want. I
Oh,
don't
wow.
recommend it. I spent
Yeah.
years doing that with the adding machine tape, to verify that everything was accurate and I wasn't off by a penny or whatever.
Uh-huh.
But you're literally keeping track of the money coming into your business and the money going out. So
Mhm.
whether that's through a bank account, a credit card, you're tracking what that is. And then you
Mhm.
need the proof behind it. And there's whole separate rules for this too, but I just say keep all your receipts regardless if you need them or not. Like you have them if they ever ask.
Mhm. Yeah, no,
And
I
that's the basics because all of that data is what makes up the numbers that go on your tax return.
mhm.
And if your tracking is wrong and your numbers are wrong, your taxes are wrong too. So maybe
Yeah.
you're, not paying more than you should, or
Yeah.
you're not paying enough and maybe at some point they figured that out and there's all different things. So we just need it to be accurate.
And I feel like it's so much easier to do that now because of the digital paper trail. You can say, like, oh, well, here's my email from this provider on this month's invoice and all that. So you're able to, it's easy to find things now. So give us the lay of the land on kind of the different technology that's out there. Because when I was putting my taxes together, I had told my tax accountant, I was like, all right, I know it's probably time for me to upgrade. And he actually told me that my Google Sheet that I have, because yep, I'm still Google Sheeting, was really great. And it wasn't, I didn't come up with this. This is a Google Sheet that I had purchased through a program and said that it was really great for keeping track of anything. So if I didn't want to invest in a technology tool, now I feel like investing in a technology tool would be much easier than me having to track down all the information. So he had told me like Xero would be a good option. And then, of course, like QuickBooks. So, tell us all the things when it comes to technology and tracking.
The fun stuff.
Yeah.
So, yes, spreadsheets are an option, and then they are good for people, just starting out. Maybe they don't have the budget to pay for a bookkeeping software, but the thing I'll just caution people on spreadsheets, if the formulas aren't right and the
Yep.
summaries aren't right,
Yep.
there's no checks and balances inside of a spreadsheet other than your own eyes going back and kind of like I would used to do on the adding machine tape. You'd add up a column of numbers and then you get the total, and now you subtract out all the numbers going back up to make sure it comes to zero. That's
Mhm.
how you know like everything's there.
Yeah.
There's just all kind of different ways that most people don't learn because they're not accountants. So spreadsheets are good for low transaction volume,
Hmm.
maybe one or two bank accounts or credit cards, or I cringe when I say this. It's for the person who's still mixing their business and personal accounts.
Oh no.
Oh,
Oh, I
yeah.
mean, I remember those days. I am way glad I am past those days because even though I am using Google Sheet, it was so much easier to find out all the information because of the separate bank accounts.
Yes. Well, and I'm not an attorney, so no legal advice here, but for everybody who has an LLC, it's a separate entity from you.
Hmm.
So your business is an entity, you personally, basically are a personal entity.
Hmm.
And commingling of funds, if by any chance you're called into any kind of litigation and they find out that that's happening, that you're treating your LLC and you as one in the same, then they can say your limited liability is in jeopardy.
Oh,
Not a
wow.
lawyer, so
Uh-huh.
talk to your own attorney
Right.
to find out. But I've seen cases where this actually happened, and one of them was local here where I live.
Oh, wow. See, this is why I think it's important to get like subject matter experts on to like say what's really happening, boots on the ground in the different areas. Because that I had
Yeah.
no idea that there was even like litigation that would question. It makes sense that there would be litigation, but I had never heard of that before.
Well, and I believe the case is they were suing the business for something else, not
Hmm.
because they were mixing money, right? They
Uh-huh.
didn't know that on the surface, but that came up as part of the investigation, and then they could go after the business owner personally because they were treating their
Yes.
LLC as one and the same as themselves.
Well,
So you
yo.
go through all the steps to create these legal separation,
Uh-huh.
follow through with it.
Okay.
Open up your own business account. Have
Hmm.
your own business credit card. Like, let's
Yeah.
stop mixing the money. I mean, at least for the legal piece, but also when I talk about the finance piece, you know exactly where everything is. You can
Hmm.
see exactly what you're spending, how much is sitting in your bank account because it's not mixed with your
Right.
personal.
I think, like, for me, this is also a really good way to see where my expenses, like, where I was overspending versus what was coming in, because I'm able to see, like, well, such and such is not working, so why am I keeping on doing that? Or I need to bring more revenue in because this month is not a good revenue, or just there's different patterns that you're able to see once it's separated. And I especially feel like when I was working full time and still having things together, like you wouldn't see that your business was operating at a loss because you have your paychecks still coming in. So being able to see that, I think that's even like further motivation of this strategic financial planning. Um, and it's easier to be able to see some of these trends and patterns when you have these different softwares because they're able to tell you what's happening within your business. Because a spreadsheet, if you have certain formulas, can tell you what's going on in your business. But I feel like the automation that comes with a Xero or a QuickBooks Online makes it even faster so that you don't have to do like extra guesswork.
Yeah. And I mean, still have people from the spreadsheet that I created years ago who are still
Mhm.
using it and they make it work for
Great
themselves.
spreadsheet.
And
Yeah.
that's all that they need. But at some point, it's going to become too much.
Hmm.
Or for the people who don't want to touch a spreadsheet, they're afraid they're going to break it because the
Yeah.
formulas can be broken. I mean,
Yeah.
there's only so many lockdowns that can be put in a spreadsheet. And I just from my own experience, Excel is easier to lock down than a Google Sheet.
Hmm.
So hence why I don't have a Google Sheet out there yet. It's only in Excel because I can put the locks in there
Yeah.
that the people have to consciously unlock it to do something different with it.
Yeah.
But when it comes to the software, and we can talk about the specific ones, but really when you talk about automations, it's connecting to those bank accounts and to those credit cards.
Hmm.
And I won't say pulling in, it's the bank that's pushing the data to whichever software you're using
Hmm.
so that now you go in there and all of your transactions are showing on a screen, right? And they all look a little bit different. But so you can see everything that's come in and gone out of your bank account and everything that's been charged on your credit card or paid down on the balance. Like those are all sitting there. And
Hmm.
now you can categorize those.
Hmm.
And like, is it commissions? Is it planning fees? Or for the expense side, is it software? Is it advertising? Is it basic office expenses, insurance? You can put them in all those different buckets
Hmm.
based on the data's already there. Where with a spreadsheet, you still have to get the data in the spreadsheet. And there's ways to make that faster, but for somebody who may not be comfortable with the spreadsheet to begin with, it can be
Hmm.
time consuming.
Hmm.
So we like the connection and the automations of, and there's several that support this, but the most popular QuickBooks Online, Xero. There's FreshBooks, which I just started looking at. Not gonna lie, I'm not super fan of Xero or FreshBooks
Hmm.
at this point. My main bank account is a local bank, and I could not get Xero to connect to my local bank. So
Interesting.
still working on that piece. I'm sure there's some kind of a workaround. It was just really weird and like, okay,
Hmm.
stick with my QuickBooks.
Yeah. And
I will
Xero.
regardless, just because it's probably my number one pick.
Yeah.
But but yeah, the being able to connect to the bank, to the credit card,
Yeah.
so that the data's already there, and now you just have to do something with it, which can also be semi-automated with what we call rules. So, if something comes in and you see it's this vendor or
Hmm.
supplier, whatever company you're paying, most call them vendors, and it's the same thing that you're paying for every month, then it automatically knows where to categorize it because you
Yeah.
told it. And
Right.
it just makes things more efficient. You don't have to think as much.
Yeah.
It's set up, but it's in the setup that really makes the process super efficient.
Talking about some of these different types of software, how, like, is there a software that you would recommend for an advisor at a certain, or like, why would you recommend Xero over QuickBooks for something? Kind of like pinpointing so that people can like maybe start self-selecting. Like, what does Xero do very well versus FreshBooks versus QuickBooks versus I know like Wave apps was another one, another option that was out there.
Yeah, so let's talk about Wave first
Uh-huh.
because it used to be 100% free. And
Mm.
now they went to a plan where you can still use it free, but it doesn't connect to your bank account for free. So now it's paid
Oh.
to get that feature. And so I've used Wave extensively helping somebody else. It's just very clunky and basic. So
Okay.
for a travel advisor who's looking to grow and use reports, I love reporting features. Like to
Yeah.
me, that's the number one thing other than the connection to the bank and the automations. When you have good reports to summarize the data that basically with a press of like two little keystrokes and a button, it's on your screen.
Hmm.
Waves reports are very, very basic and it's really difficult to kind of like dig down and see what's happened. So I'm not a huge fan, although I know travel advisors use Wave and they're happy with it. So,
Hmm.
everybody has their own product. I don't care for it. So we can, I
Agree
can
to
go into more,
disagree.
but there's really not much to kind of say that would make Wave, in my mind, be a top contender to
Okay.
get to level 4 when we're looking at my tiers.
Hmm.
It's probably possibly a step above spreadsheets,
Um.
but that's kind of where it sits for me. But
Uh-huh.
others may have different opinions. I'm a little critical
Hmm.
with the software because I know the power of some of the others. So it's
Okay.
very easy for me to say it's a very basic one.
Okay. So would Zero and QBO be kind of like your tops then?
Yeah, and so I just started diving into Xero earlier this year. And like I said, I had trouble connecting my own business bank account because it's
Uh-huh.
with a local bank. Now, the large nationwide banks, Chase, Wells Fargo, Bank of America, like some of those probably won't have any difficulties at all.
Okay.
It was just my particular local bank, and it literally is a local city bank
Hmm.
that is having difficulties. But I went through, and I have access to they call it their sandbox, like sample data
Mm.
and all this.
Yeah.
It just seemed a little more clunky to me, not quite as straightforward as a QuickBooks Online. That could be because I'm very used to working
Yeah.
in a QuickBooks environment. So, comparing the two when we look at the plans, right? Because most of the time people are going to pick a software so that it meets them where they are right now, but
Hmm.
it also can grow with their business. That to me, that's one of the things to look for
Okay.
is, and Wave, I don't feel like can grow with your business. Or spreadsheets get too time consuming and complicated to grow with your business, right?
Okay.
So that leaves us with the QuickBooks Online, Xero, FreshBooks as the options. And I did a comparison of their pricing plans.
Hmm.
And honestly, QuickBooks Online for the plan that to me would be that beginner level to give you what you need to connect to the banks, run the automations with the rules and the certain reporting requirements, QuickBooks was still the least expensive, believe it or not.
Wow. Well, that's great to know. And
Yes,
how would you compare those? Because those are like bookkeeping, accounting
they
softwares.
are.
How would you compare those to the like commission tracking softwares like Xeon or TripSuite?
So I really think the CRMs are a totally different necessary piece
Hmm.
in our industry. And there's so many of them now,
Yeah.
right? We even have Travel Joy, we have Sion, we have Trip Suite, we have Turn, Vacation Creations, I don't know, Vacation CRM.
Yeah.
I'm
Yep.
sure there's others out there. So I think at this point it's just really based on what the needs are.
Okay.
And maybe people don't know what they need. Um, if I was looking for a CRM to help me track my sales and my commissions, right? Because we are not tracking our sales in a QuickBooks Online if you are a hosted advisor, and you're probably not even tracking sales if you're independent. It's more the larger agencies. So TripSuite is one of those that only works with large agencies,
Okay.
whether they're a host or not. and they integrate directly with QuickBooks Online. I think they were probably one of the first to do that.
Nice.
I know, but they're only for the really large agencies. So they don't even work with the individual or small teams.
Okay.
So we could probably, not even talk about them anymore. Although I love them as a company, it's
Yeah.
just not realistic for the people who are listening on your podcast.
Yeah.
So, really, for reporting requirements, I mean, you don't just want to see your sales, right? You want to see different breakdowns of your
Hmm.
sales so that that's part of your analysis of what's happening in your business. And the biggest one, honestly, is to see when the commissions are expected to come in. That's your cash flow.
100%.
And there's some I do think that have these, but others are still lacking in this area or make it really difficult to
Hmm.
figure it out because the report isn't pre-coded per
Hmm.
se to where you can just put some dates in and see. I mean, how do you plan for the future if you can't even see when your commissions are supposed to be coming in based on what you already have booked?
And I could be wrong. So Sion was in the season one of Travel Tech Audio Summit. So if you wanted to learn more about Sion, you can listen to that one. I think or maybe I'm making this up, but I could have swore that Travefy recently said they were working on a partnership or somebody was working on a partnership with possibly Sion. Again, I might be making this up because I don't remember like when it was said and where it was. I say Travefy because Travefy just recently launched a lot of new things. So that's why I'm like, well, possibly. Um, so stay tuned because I think that's something that's coming down the pipeline too, is that a lot of the CRMs weren't originally built for a lot of like the commission tracking and the commission reporting, but they're adding those types of features to their platforms. But again, like you mentioned, CRM functionality and bookkeeping functionality are two separate things, similar but separate.
They are, and honestly, for the advisors that I know and the ones who I don't know, who I'm pretty sure are similar to the ones I know,
Yeah.
if the two were combined into one, they would probably be overwhelmed, so confused, and not sure which end is up.
Uh-huh.
So I really see them as two separate systems. You just need to know which one, when to use which one, and how they fit together, not integrated,
Hmm.
but how using data from one can help influence data in another,
Hmm. Yeah.
if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because you look at our sales cycle, right? You sell a trip, the commission does not come into your bank account instantly.
Right.
It's months later, sometimes even a year or more if you're working on a large group. I mean,
Yeah.
you could be working on that forever before you ever see the real cash hit your bank. So you don't want that hanging out in your QuickBooks or your Xero as revenue when you haven't even gotten it. And it may change by the time you get it.
Hmm.
So to me, it's just having reports available through a CRM to see when it's expected will
Hmm.
help you kind of project your cash flow, at least the money coming in.
Yeah.
And then with the expenses, hopefully, you know what you're paying for every month, what you're paying for each quarter, or what's coming up, on an annual basis so you're not caught off guard.
Yeah. Yeah, because I think that's another really big thing, and we probably talked about it before of the whole keeping track of your cash flow, and that's what a lot of like the bookkeeping software can't help you do, but a lot of like the commission tracking and reporting now can help you if you're inputting information. You can see like, okay, this month I'll be okay, but this month I won't because that commission doesn't come until another month from now or another year from now. So being able to figure out where your gaps in income are and seeing like what you can do, what sales that you can have, what promos that you can have to fill in the gaps between the trips that you currently already have on the books.
Right. But QuickBooks Online does have a cash flow planner. Just most people doesn't know that it's
Ooh,
there. Now,
okay.
it's not having the data from your CRM, right?
Uh-huh.
To see. And you could easily just kind of estimate. I use this a lot. I use it in my business, I use it in my husband's business. And I'm actually going to start teaching it to the people who are pretty strong in
Hmm.
their QuickBooks game right now. Like, let's just add another layer
Hmm.
onto this for you. Um, I love it because it's literally a graph on the screen that shows cash in and cash out.
Okay.
And you can see where it's going to dip down. You can set a threshold
Hmm.
like, hey, this is my bare minimum cash level that I want to keep in my bank at all times, like my emergency fund kind of a thing. And you can instantly see, as long as the data in the planner is accurate, you can instantly see where those holes are.
Okay. Perfect. Well, I know we've talked a lot about finances that I'm sure somebody's eyes are definitely crossed now. And they have to get to the drawing board, do some homework. So, where is like how can people stay connected with you moving forward, ask you any questions? I think you're also working on some fun resources coming up too.
I am. So, one of the best places, it may not stay here forever, thanks to Facebook deleting videos after 30 days.
Right.
Things are kind of changing in my Facebook group. I'm still figuring out what I want to do in there going forward. But I do have a free Facebook group, the First
Mhm.
Class Profit Lounge. So
Nice.
people can join in there. Like, there's still activity and there will still be activity. It just may look a little different than it has in the past. But I also have a comparison chart for these different spreadsheets. I know
Oh,
this isn't a
nice.
deep dive, and some people may have more specific questions, or like, how do I know? What questions should I ask? Like, what features should I look for? And maybe even what do they cost?
Hmm.
Right? And then are there resources to help me learn them if I want to go down that road? So that will be available on my website, and I'll
Perfect.
give you a link to post in the bottom of this so we can let
Awesome.
people come in and get that resource. And to me, those are just like the first steps.
Uh-huh.
Now, currently, like I mentioned earlier, I do have a spreadsheet system. So for somebody who isn't ready to invest in the bookkeeping software, maybe they're just getting started, that's available. It's only on Excel because I can put the locks
Right.
to kind of help protect you
Protect
from
you.
yourself if you're
Yeah.
not an Excel wizard. It makes things a little bit easier, not doing it because I don't think people know what they're doing, but I've seen it happen
Right. Right.
time and time again. And I also have a QuickBooks online service or a DIY program where they can actually go do it themselves
That'll be
and
nice.
learn how to set it up, connect what needs to be connected, and I call it backfit data so that it starts as of January 1, and then a whole tutorial library on what to do, like how to maintain your data, what reports to run, what are they telling you. It's packed with videos in there. You just have to be willing to do it.
Yes. Well, that is super nice, especially for people who still want to DIY things. And I know we keep talking about, I mean, as we're heading into summer and all things that might be going on economically, this might be the best time to start putting these financial systems into place. So that might be a really great resource to take advantage of now to do it yourself.
Yeah, to be caught up before the end of the year. So your
Yeah.
system is ready to go. You learn how to maintain it. Because honestly, none of these systems work without the human.
Yeah.
Like, you have to do something.
Yeah.
We try to make it as efficient as possible, but you still need to do it.
Yeah.
And that's the only way you're going to benefit from the data, right? Is to go through the process, make it a habit, check in with it every single month. So
Hmm.
we're not looking at it once every 12 months.
Right.
We're looking once every month and comparing, like, like you said, am I paying for something that I'm not even using anymore? Or I'm not getting the same value that I was in the beginning. Like, why is
Yeah.
this still showing up on my credit card?
Right.
And you catch it right away and you can make a decision
Yeah.
or put it on your, like, this is my wait and see list. I'm not
Yeah.
quite sure, but it's kind of the middle. And at some point, you'll make a decision.
Hmm.
It's a great time to catch up though.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I call it our summer cleaning time. Not spring cleaning. We're doing summer cleaning over here. So,
Yeah, I mean, it's a great time to do it.
yeah, thank you, Stephanie, for being here,
Thank
sharing with
you.
us again. I know that this was power packed, so I am sure travel pros, if you this was as impactful to you as it was to us, make sure to let us know, reach out on social media or email, and we'll see you all next week. Bye. Thanks for joining me on the podcast today. Remember to check out the show notes for all relevant links and resources from today's show. See you next time.